The Story of the Blank Book. Fairytales Forever, Book 2. Written by Andboo. Narrated by Erica Hazelton. Chapter 1. Down by the Creek. Marcus! Marcia! Come to dinner! Their mother's voice echoed through the empty, dry air as they skipped rocks across the creek. Come on, Marcus! Marcia yelled as she ran up the path leading to the top of the hill where their house sat. Marcus sprinted to catch up with her as the smoky sun slowly set behind them. 10 years old tomorrow, their mother said with a smile, masking the fact that she could not provide for them much to celebrate with, although she did have a gift for them. I know it's not much, she said, but it's special to me, and I hope you like it. She placed a small book on the table and slid it across to them. Happy birthday. Thanks, Mama, the twins said in sync. Marcia grabbed the book and flipped through it as Marcus leaned across the table to take a look. What is it, Ma? He asked. It's the story of the town. Chapter 2. Something I Once Read. Later that night, Marcia twisted and turned in her bed, not able to sleep. Her mind raced. She rolled over and anxiously grabbed the book from her nightstand beside her. She opened the book with awe, enthralled with learning about the history of the small town. She eagerly rushed to read the book, but something was wrong. Marcus, wake up! Marcia whispered in concern as she shook him. Marcus awoke to a terrified look on her face. Sensing the horror in her voice, he sat up and switched on his bed lamp. What is it? He asked in concern. The pages, she murmured. They're blank. Marcus quickly snatched the book from her and flipped through it, only to find that she was correct. Every page was blank. Chapter 3. Such a Strange Thing. Marcia woke up early to the glare of the shimmering rays of the dim autumn sun. She pulled back the curtain to her window as to admire the beautiful colors of the foliage as she watched the dying leaves fall from the browning trees as they floated to the ground in the breeze. Although she had always been told to never go into the forest across the creek, she had always enjoyed the mysterious look and feel of it. Marcia pulled her chair to the window and sat down to watch the wind roll the leaves into the creek. She picked up the strange book again. As she opened the binds to the blank pages, the light through the window seemed to shine down directly upon them. Marcia noticed raised bumps on the pages now. Braille? She thought, running her fingers across them with wonder. As she ran her fingers down the page, she heard a creaking of a rocking chair in her ears. She looked back at her chair, and the creaking stopped. Chapter 4. A Creak of Creed. Marcus rolled awake in a haze. What's that noise? He groaned, plugging his ears. Stop rocking your chair, he said, pulling his blanket over his head. What? Marcia said, looking back at him from her chair. Stop rocking your chair, he said as the creaking made his head ache terribly. You hear that too? She closed the book and quickly rushed downstairs. Marcus jumped out of bed to follow her. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, the creaking sound got louder and harsher. Arg! He moaned, falling to the floor. Hearing the thump, Marcia turned around and gasped. She ran over to check on him. Fading in and out of consciousness, Marcus saw an old man in a rocking chair, swaying back and forth, surrounded only by darkness.
Marcus!
He heard faintly, his sister's voice falling beyond his dream.
Marcus!
He heard a frail voice say, as he watched the old man reach out blindly from his chair, seemingly to touch nothing but air. The creaking became louder and the darkness darker. As the dream faded, he flickered back to reality and sat up. "Are you okay?" Marcia asked. "I saw something," he explained. "An old man in a rocking chair. He looked familiar." Marcus stood up and shook off the creeping darkness of the dream that seemed to still surround him. Yet the creaking returned, this time in the distance. He looked around in confusion. "Marcus?" Marcia asked in concern as he seemed to walk forward with a blank stare. Marcus could hear her but couldn't respond. He had lost control, only now to follow the sound of the creaking. Chapter 5. Reading in the Dark. Marcia chased after Marcus as the sound of creaking pulled him unwillingly with its power. He wandered out of the house. As he stumbled down the porch, he was stricken upright with sobering fear as the wood below his feet creaked in a haunting, reminiscent manner. He continued again, without control over his actions, to the abandoned house across from him, just beyond the dirt road, just outside of their home. Marcia, afraid for him, grabbed him and with all her might attempted to stop him, begging him to stay away. Although scared himself, Marcus pulled still against his own will, opened the door to the house, and walked into the dark room. As the door swung open, the outside light illuminated the dark room. Alone in the house only sat the old man that he had seen in his vision. The man sat alone in the house, swaying back and forth on his rocking chair. As it creaked,
"Well, come in already,"
he said. The kids walked into the dark house. "Who are you?" Marcia asked in concern. The front door slammed behind them. Still holding the book, Marcia couldn't help but open it as it began to glow. The man reached out blindly.
"Hand it over,"
he said. Marcia stepped up hesitantly and placed the book in his hands. As he ran his fingers across the braille on the paper, the glow of the book dimmed, but now the light shined from his eyes. Slowly he mouthed words until he hummed an evil melody. The light shone from him more and more as the melody increased in intensity. Finally bathed in light, he chanted the melody. Chapter 6. Beyond These Trees. The chanting stopped, and the man dissipated into particles of light. Suddenly a harsh wind blew open the front door. Marcus again lost control as he followed the sound of distant flute music. Marcia followed him in concern as he wandered out of the house. It had somehow become placed amongst dead trees, deep within the spooky forest. Although lost now inside the forbidden woods that they had been warned never to wander into, Marcia gained hope as she heard the familiar sound of the brook that ran near their home. As they continued towards the sound of running water, she realized that her ears had deceived her. It wasn't the brook, but rather it was a pool of boiling water. She watched in absolute terror as Marcus charged into the hot spring and melted, burning to bits, right before her eyes. Chapter 7. No Rest for the Wicked. The twins awoke in their beds to the darkness of the night. "Did we just have the same dream?" Marcia asked. "It was a nightmare," Marcus replied. After school that day, they went to play down by the creek just as they had every day before, skipping rocks across the water. Marcia felt a chilling aura of déjà vu as she bent down to pick up a rock and noticed a small book wash up next to her. She picked it up to look at it. The pages were blank. She ran her fingers across the braille, poking from its soggy pages. Marcia showed the book to Marcus. Confused, he looked at the book with anger. "You know what to do," Marcia said. They each grabbed an end of the book and ripped it to pieces. Suddenly, dark clouds covered the sky. As the kids ran home for dinner, the sky let out a furious thunder and sent down a black rain upon the house. The end. You have been listening to The Story of the Blank Book, Fairytales Forever, Book 2, written by Andboo, narrated by Erica Hazelton.